Are you a home grower looking for a little bit of help? Are you ready to learn as much as you can about your favorite hobby? The Homegrown Helpers brings you informative interviews from experienced growers that have taken the next steps in their journey and decided to help you grow top quality cannabis all in your home. Now welcome in our host, Rob Smith, along with this week's Homegrown Helper. And welcome to the show, everyone. Are you ready for this week's grow tips and tricks from another Homegrown Helper? Yes, me too. This week, Maria Swansen of Swan Consulting in Washington joins us to share her journey and tons of practical grow advice to help you in the garden. She is a referral from one of our previous guests, Erin Lapsansky, whose interview I really enjoyed, and I definitely enjoyed the time with Maria as well. They both worked together at one of the farms up there in Washington. They learned together, and I bet the garden was in the best shape with these two smart women running things. Maria gives some specific tips for increasing yield, like the correct time to introduce or ensure that manganese is being properly absorbed by your plant. So make sure you listen up and pay attention because we all really need to increase those yields. So wanted to give you a quick update on a few things that's happening over at mygrowpass.com, our premier membership program, giving you exclusive audios, discounts, giveaways, resources, and so much more. First, we just wrapped up our November Ask Us Anything with the entire Growcast and GrowPass crew there in attendance. And again, we just really love that format and being able to connect to our audience, our members, and get to answer their questions directly from them. So that's one perk that we offer. We are also just releasing a content-only package, which does include that AMA, that monthly AMA that we hold. That is designed for international customers, but it can be used by anyone and everyone. So for $14.95 a month, you get all of the exclusive audios, the resources, the archived Growcast episodes, which are not available to the general public anymore, as well as the access to the Ask Me Anythings. We just didn't include the discounts and giveaways for those members, and that's why it's specifically designed for those international customers. So if you've been waiting for that and interested, head on over to mygrowpass.com and click the sign up button and check out the international only package. We're also holding a big contest over on Instagram at the Growcast page. You can help us get to the magical number of 3,333 followers. All you have to do is find the original post. It's got a video that starts off with Larry Bird, the man, Larry Bird, number 33. All you have to do is tag a friend on that post and pick a number between 1 and 3333, and you'll be entered to get 3 free months of Bloom membership. See what we're doing there with all the 3333. My lucky number is 9, so 3 times 3 is 9. And so help us get to 3333 followers. Find the Growcast Instagram. It's at Growcast, pretty simple. And tag a friend on that original post and pick a number. The last thing we have to do before we get into the interview with Maria Swansen is to thank yet another 5-star review. So we really appreciate those 5-star reviews. They help us grow. We've come a long way recently, and we don't have really anybody else to thank but you guys, the listeners, for those ratings and reviews, sharing the show, and telling people how awesome it is over here at the Homegrown Helpers. So this comes from Glenn Jerome. Glenn goes on to say, titled, Relevant and Timely Information. Every week, these episodes provide me with something that I write down. It may not always be applicable. However, I am always learning based on others' experiences, which is far less costly than making the mistakes or investments myself. Thanks. And I like a point that Glenn brings up here. He writes down the tips, which, listening is great, but when you write down something, it actually helps seal that into the memory and is a longer lasting impression on your brain. So like he said, maybe you don't apply it right now, but it's something that you can keep in there and hold on to for that time that you do need that advice. So the last thing is that we have to thank our MyGrowPass.com partners that make this show possible for you. Thank you to Cultilux, makers of the premium ceramic metal halide bulb and fixtures, and Greencraft Distribution. Based in New England, but reaching far beyond that. They are the distributors of some amazing hydroponic brands, and you will hear about them later on in the show. Last thing, don't forget you can grab some amazing Dr. Zymes samples still at growcastpodcast.com/Zymes, Zymes. You also get a sweet wizard pin. All you have to do is pay shipping, and you get a couple of samples and that pin sent right to you. So let's get into the episode with Maria Swansen, and hope you guys enjoy it, and we'll talk to you later. Welcome to the show, Maria.
Thank you. Thanks for having me.
So Maria, why don't we start off, tell us a little bit about yourself, where you're from, and how long you've been growing cannabis.
All right. So I grew up in Blaine, Washington, which is just north of Bellingham on the Canadian border. And I went to school at Washington State University for organic agriculture and crop science. About 2 years in, I kind of realized that I was in nursing and I didn't want to be in nursing. So I switched to organic agriculture, and I knew that cannabis would be legalized at some point, and I was always really fascinated by the plant. So I just figured that that would be a good way to, have a resume that eventually, when cannabis was legalized, would get my foot in the door. So from there, I interned on a permaculture farm in Hawaii, which had cannabis. And
sounds rough.
Well,
farms in Hawaii.
Oh yeah, it was amazing. Yeah, it was the best experience of my life. So yeah, while I was there, cannabis was actually legalized in Washington. That was my junior year of college. So after I graduated, I moved back to Bellingham, and I was hired at Cascadia Gardens. I was hired like 3 months after they had started their business. So they bought the business from someone else. It was really rough, and they basically inherited a bunch of plants and the business from another company that was failing. So it was really rough. It was pest and disease ridden. And basically, I was there for 3 years, helped transform the company from a failing company into a completely renovated and, one of the top 10 cannabis brands in Washington State.
Awesome.
So after 3 years, I had the opportunity to start a new company called Koala Cannabis. And basically, I was able to replicate my success at Cascadia there. And I decided that, at that point, I had accrued the skills to help other people in their gardens. So yeah, that's how I got here.
Awesome. How long did you work at Koala?
So I'm still at Koala, actually. I'm
Okay.
kind of consulting on the side.
Okay.
And I've worked, we've been a company for a year, basically a year and a month now. So yeah, it's been awesome. I was basically, when I started there, that company was also failing, and we inherited basically a handful of really sick plants that were yellow and dying, and we were able to transform it from basically a entire 10,000 square foot warehouse with no plants into a thriving brand in 6 to 8 months. So it's been a really awesome experience.
Great. Congratulations on that success.
Thank you.
Being able to turn around a couple of gardens like that has to look good on the resume, huh?
Yeah, I mean, I've learned a lot. When I started, I can't say that I had a whole lot of experience other than, we had 20 plants in Hawaii, and it was a completely different environment. So I've learned a lot along the way. I definitely didn't start out amazing, but thanks to some great mentors, I feel like I've come a long way.
Well, I don't think any of our other guests just, started off as amazing cannabis growers. I don't think many of us do. Maybe there's a few lucky green thumbs that just start right off growing that fire.
Totally. It's a lifelong learning experience.
Totally. Pretty much took the words right out of my mouth. So you're the second Cascadia Gardens employee that we've had on the line. Erin Lapsansky is currently working there. I'm assuming you guys know each other?
Yes, I worked
Awesome.
with Erin for about a year and a half out
Great.
of my 3 years
Great.
at Cascadia.
Yeah, she really knows her stuff as well.
Yeah, we were the only two garden employees there together for a year out of both of our experiences. So yeah,
Wow.
we definitely had some fun working together.
Right on. You definitely know each other then.
Yes.
So, Maria, why don't you tell me about your current grow setup? Give us a little bit of information about the lights, the size of pots, your grow media, if you're using any nutrients, that type of thing.
All right. So I'm in about 300 square feet and I've got 15 plants in 10-gallon pots. I grow in it's Fox Farm Ocean Forest, so it's a peat mix, an organic peat soil. I've got LEDs and I use a scrog method. And I don't have AC or CO2, so I'm just kind of using intake outtake method. And I do have a dehume, so I'm surprisingly able to keep the environment pretty on point just using that.
Okay. Is it in your basement?
No, it's out in an external shop.
Interesting. Nice work with the managing the environment without an AC.
Thank you.
Yeah,
It's
for
a
sure.
bit challenging in the summer,
Yeah.
but having two fans definitely helps.
Cool. That's a lesson to learn all on its own, I think.
Yeah, you definitely have to keep the lights on at night, not during the day.
Yep.
But
Well, depending on how many LEDs, they're not putting out a ton of heat,
yeah, exactly.
so it's much easier to manage with that.
Yeah, that's definitely transformed my yields just by using LEDs and not having AC. It's been huge.
Transformed in a positive way?
Yeah. So I had HPSs before.
Yep.
Switching to LEDs, basically the heat factor alone increased my yields by almost 50%.
Wow. Wow.
Yeah, it was pretty crazy.
Wow. Right on. Well, that's good to know. That's a lesson for our audience right there. If I remember correctly, I think you and Erin have very similar size grows. Is there something about 15 plants in Washington State? Is that like a medical cap?
Yeah.
Okay.
Basically, if you're registered with the state, that's the most you can have.
Gotcha. And I think you both grow in Fox Farm or a mix of. I think she amends it a little bit, but
Yep.
Nice stuff. So, Maria, let's get into some grow advice. What do you say?
Well, grow advice. I mean, I've got a lot of advice, I guess.
Oh, I'll ask a specific question. That was more of like an open-ended kind of like
Oh,
teaser.
okay.
Yeah.
All right.
So what do new growers need to pay attention to when it comes to the overall health of the plant?
I would definitely say mastering environment is going to be like the number one thing because that's your baseline that controls the overall health of your plants because you can put, the correct amount of nutrients in there, but if your environment's not correct, they might be needing more nutrients depending on the vapor pressure deficit. They might not be uptaking as much CO2. So it kind of all factors in starting with the environment.
So, walk us through what's your perfect, environmental temperature and humidity for, veg and flower, if you can kind of rattle those off.
Yeah. So since I'm using LEDs, the optimal leaf surface temperature is around 88, which means the ambient room temperature is going to be like 84. And then I try to keep my humidity, as high as I can on the vapor pressure deficit chart up to like 4 weeks in flower, just because, the plants do better at a higher humidity.
Mm-hmm.
But then to minimize, botrytis and mold at that point, I will lower the humidity to 50, 45 in late flower, and maybe 40 depending on the strain that I'm growing if it has mold issues.
Okay.
But I always kind of want to maintain that 84 ambient temperature with 88 leaf surface temperature with LEDs.
Great. So we just recently had a question on our Instagram DMs about that late flower and why so many VPD charts don't address the fact that you really should drop down your humidity in those last weeks of flower. Any thoughts on that?
Well, the vapor pressure deficit chart it's not referring to cannabis specifically. So it's simply referring to if you think about the vapor pressure deficit, it's the difference between the humidity inside the leaf and the humidity and temperature outside of the leaf,
Hmm.
like in the air. So, vapor wants to go from higher density to lower density.
Hmm.
And so if the room is super low humidity, like 40 and 88, it's not the ideal humidity, but we have to think about, our product and not wanting to lose it to mold. So
Right.
the vapor pressure density chart's just not, I guess, made specifically for that purpose. So it's not going to address that.
Like such a dense flower versus, daisies or something like that.
Yeah, exactly. Because I mean, we want our temperature to kind of stay around the same.
Hmm.
Some strains we want to be a little lower, but if you're not moving that temperature down, then basically the humidity, they're not going to recommend the humidity to go down either.
Right.
But that's just kind of what we have to do.
Right. So when you're dropping that humidity percentage after 4 weeks of flower, are you dropping the temperature or trying to drop the temperature, to keep the VPD the same throughout those last 4 to 5 weeks of flower?
Um, some strains I do try to drop the temperature, but I mean, yeah, ideally, you are going to want to stay within the chart, but usually I try to keep the humidity as high as I can for as long as I can,
Yep.
and then I might drop the temperature a few degrees, but I try not to get lower than like 78, just because
Sure.
it's not going to grow as optimally below that, depending on the strain.
Okay.
And I want to keep the flower, as dense and as good as I can.
Yeah, I mean, on the VPD charts, just for listeners, there's, if you haven't seen one, go check one out. They're easy to Google. Most of them are the same, but they all have ranges. So there's ranges for that optimal flowering growth stage. So you can be anywhere within those ranges or a little bit on either side of that to have that optimal, but you do want to ensure that you're dropping your humidity percentage down so that, moisture in the air doesn't start causing some bud rot or botrytis in your heavy dense flowers, which we hope you're growing heavy dense flowers and have that problem.
Totally.
So Maria, in your opinion, what's the single highest leverage move a grower can do in order to increase the yields off of their limited plant counts?
So I'm kind of going to stick with my mastering the environment, but I also have a few things to add to that, because it's kind of hard to separate one factor from the system as a whole, since the grow room is like a living ecological system and all the parts are intertwined.
Sure.
Mastering the environment just kind of gives you that like sweet spot baseline. So if you have that right, that whatever else you're doing is going to be received in the optimal way by the plants. So it's
Okay.
just kind of limiting the stress on the plants. And it's easier to diagnose from that point if you know that you have the right, vapor pressure density range. From there, you can kind of tell whether maybe if you're feeding the right amounts, it's just going to be easier to diagnose. But other than that, I would say scrogging is something that I'm pretty OCD about, just because having like an even canopy, the right light interception, that's definitely going to make a huge difference in just your overall yield. And then having the fullest canopy possible, making sure that you're pushing down, the plants into every open square so that you can maximize the amount of light that the plant is getting. And then something I've been experimenting with is manganese. So manganese plays a key role in photosynthesis, respiration, and nitrogen assimilation. So, having a deficiency can result in a reduced yield or weaker resistance to pathogens, and also a reduced tolerance to drought and heat stress. So applying that in soils where the pH is above 6 has actually helped me a lot in situations where, there's been some issues. So yeah, that's been something new that I've been experimenting with.
Very interesting stuff with that manganese. I hadn't heard that before.
Yeah, I read an article about it a few months ago, and yeah, it's actually had some pretty great results.
Awesome. Do you have any percentages behind that, or just visual? It's still early on in the experimentation
Um,
phase.
it's pretty early on in the experimentation phase, but I will say that one of the gardens that I was consulting in, they had a pretty big heat problem in the summer,
Mm-hmm.
and it was like 5 weeks in, and it looked like it was maybe week 2 or 3 in flower,
Mm.
because it was so hot. And we, once we reduced the temperature, we started adding in manganese. They were able to get their yields back to where they should have been, which in 3 weeks it's a pretty significant jump
Yeah.
in growth. So that was pretty awesome. That's one of the first full cycles that I've actually experimented with it. So yeah,
Great.
I'm impressed so far.
Yeah, they missed a couple critical weeks there. 3 through
Yeah,
5 are
totally.
pretty important.
It was a little scary.
Yeah. Yeah. Nice job. Nice job.
Thank you.
All right, we are going to take a quick sponsor break and welcome and thank our partners, Cultilux.com. You spell that Cultilux.com. Save 10% on all your ceramic metal halide fixtures and bulbs by using GrowCast10, GrowCast10 to save 10% off, or get a whopping 25% off after you become a member at mygrowpass.com. These fixtures are designed to provide customers with an easy and inexpensive option to upgrade. They are completely interchangeable with all of their bulbs and fixtures. And, if you go for the big boy, the 1,000-watt series, you can start with the 315-watt or the 630-watt bulb and work your way up. You don't always need a 1,000-watt CMH fixture or bulb, I should say, but I would suggest going with the bigger one, just in case you do want that deeper light penetration, the more wattage, although they do advise that they don't ever suggest putting that 1,000-watt bulb into a small tent, like a 4x4 tent, because ultimately with the reflection and the amount of light that emits, it ends up being too much for your plants to absorb and is a waste of your money on a monthly basis with your electrical bills and the upfront cost. So these results and features allow the customers to grow as they grow. And most people start out as a small scale operation with the intentions to expand. So, it makes sense to go and invest in the higher quality bulb and fixture right off the bat with Cultilux.com and use code GrowCast10 to save 10% off. We also want to thank my friends over at Greencraft Distribution, greencraftdistribution.com. Use code GROWCAST to save 10% off site-wide, or members get 25% off all their premium CBD products, as well as Stash Logic's Cushly, Canatai, and they are the only distributors in the U.S. of Buddha's Tree. Now, our members all got, I think, 1 liter of a couple of the Buddha's Tree products when they became winners of our 5K giveaway on October 1st. And we do that again on January 1st, once a quarter, the first day of every quarter. Buddha's Tree is pretty amazing. They also carry the Clean Roots platforms, which was designed and brought to life here in New England by another friend of mine. These guys are great. They've been great partners for us. They sent out gifts to our Bloom members, which will continue through this quarter. And we just want to say thanks to Greencraft Distribution for your discount of 10% using code GROWCAST, or members get 25% off. Go check them out at greencraftdistribution.com. And welcome back, everybody. Maria, let's get into IPM in an indoor garden. What are your protocols and go-to items to keep your garden and plants clean and healthy?
Well, let's see. I guess my go-to is always going to be organic microbial products. generally I'm only going to try to spray those within the first 4 weeks as needed. And then obviously, if we can't get it under control, which if you're consistent within the first 4 weeks, then you shouldn't really have issues in the last four, especially, in the veg stage. You want to also be consistent then. But yeah, there's a couple really good soil microbial products that I use to get rid of insects. And then also there's a really great one for powdery mildew prevention. It's not so great once you have powdery mildew, but it works fantastically, even in gardens that don't have climate control.
What are some of these names of these products?
So Procytic is the spray for powdery mildew, and it's literally just citric acid extract. And it basically works as a systemic to prevent powdery mildew from attaching to the leaf surface. And I've had really great results using that every 6 days. And yeah, I mean, it's worked for the past 3 years in one of the first gardens that I worked at. I mean, I've never seen more powdery mildew in my life. It was just everywhere. It was covering every single leaf surface.
Yeah.
And obviously we had to use a few more products to, get rid of a lot of it on the leaf surface while we were also applying Procytic. But I mean, it was amazing how fast we got it under control just by using that once we got the levels down.
Mm-hmm.
It was virtually not there. I mean, it's hard to get rid of it in a continuous harvest garden at all. But yeah, we pretty much got rid of it. So I would say that's been like a pretty huge game changer. And then honestly, this isn't a grow product as much as it is just a tool, is a paint sprayer.
Yep.
Obviously, you don't spray paint with it, but that has drastically changed my spray regimen. And I guess it's way more efficient. Obviously, in a large scale garden, it's going to be a bigger deal than in a home grow. But I still use one in my home grow, and it just basically ensures that the entire leaf surface is coated, and it's not like large droplets that are going to contribute to, more mold. And then it protects the entire leaf surface. So that's a win right there.
So I've read some articles or seen some reports of maybe it was cheaper paint sprayers, but ending up with some higher metal content in the plants because cheap metal parts and the atomizer and the sprayer and stuff. Any thoughts on that? Have you heard that as well?
No, I mean, I haven't heard that. We have to get our flour at quality tested. Every batch that comes out has to be under a certain limit, and we've never had any issues with it.
Well, maybe you didn't get one of those cheap ones then.
Yeah, exactly. Ours was definitely not cheap, but yeah, I mean, that's an interesting point.
Yeah, whatever you use will slowly degrade the metal inside and, was ending up on the plants and in the soil. And so I'm glad you guys haven't had any problems. But
yeah, so far so good, but it's definitely something to think about.
Sure. What type of characteristics are the most important in order for a grower to be a top shelf, top tier type grower?
I definitely think keeping an open mind is one of the most crucial things that a grower can do. It's really easy to think when things are going well that like you know everything and you've got your processes down. But anytime I've ever started to think that something, I mean, you're basically dealing with Mother Nature, and there's always something just waiting to go wrong. So always keeping an open mind and looking for a better way to do things, or a more innovative way to do things, I guess. It's going to keep you from getting blind spots thinking that your way is the best way, basically.
Great. Yeah. Open-mindedness is one of the three that I always mention. So we're spot on there. So as we wrap up this interview, Maria, and I just want to say thank you again for your time and sharing a bit of your knowledge with our audience. I'm sure they all appreciate it.
Thank you for having me. It's been awesome.
Yeah. So we're going to wrap things up. Before we get into our bonus content, And just a reminder to our audience, you can get the next 5 questions that we asked Maria over at thehomegrownhelpers.com/bonus. And you can download Maria's bonus content as well as all of our other guests right there. So, Maria, any last bits of advice or wisdom that you'd like to share from your time in the cannabis garden with every grower listening to you?
Yeah, I mean, I think I've said it a few times, but the environment has been the biggest game changer for me. There's very few products other than a couple that I mentioned that have made a huge difference. Advertising to growers is like a huge industry these days. And I think mastering the environment is the most important. Obviously, providing the plants with the right nutrients and kind of developing a consistent regimen is really important for just diagnosing problems in general. But yeah, referring to the vapor pressure deficit chart is really important. And then just, you know, observing every single plant every single day, just seeing the tiny changes that happen on a day-to-day basis over time will give you a really great idea of, how your plants react to what. And, any future issues, you can always refer back to that. So yeah, that's what I would say.
Okay. That kind of sparked a question. Do you have any other environmental tips? Temperature and humidity are obviously the big ones, but any like light manipulation, or you said that you don't have any CO2 supplementation. Do you do anything else to influence the environment to help your plants be a little happier?
I don't really, I guess, do anything other than like the LEDs have been really crucial for me, I think, because since they are made to have the optimal light spectrum and not have any waste, like the HPSs are just not as efficient because they've got all those extra spectrums that, they say that the plants don't really absorb, which creates more friction on the leaf surface, which creates more heat. So that's automatically going to impact your environment when you have more heat and, less efficient light. So I would say that's definitely improved my environment hugely. And then intaking air from outside, as long as I have a dehumidifier for the late stage flower. I mean, that brings in some CO2, obviously. So
Sure.
I highly recommend LEDs to anyone. I know a lot of people are really skeptical about them just because it's not the traditional way, but it's been huge for me.
Great. Thank you. So, Maria, how can our audience learn more from you, find and connect with you out there in the world?
I have an Instagram, which is it's Maria with 3 A's at the end, Maria Wanna Chronicles. That's actually, let me try to find the exact name of it. I'm not super active on my Instagram, but I'm trying to be a little better about it. So it's Maria, MariaaJuana _Chronicles. That's my Instagram.
Okay.
And yeah, that's pretty much the only place that I'm semi-active online. But you can feel free to message me there or follow my journey. I'll try to be a little better about it.
Great. Well, again, thank you for your time, but don't forget, don't hang up after we let you go here. We got you for 5 more questions, and you can get those questions at thehomegrownhelpers.com/bonus or bonus content. And if you like what you heard today, don't forget that we have more growing content for you available at growcastpodcast.com. And we also have our membership program, members.mygrowpass.com. You can sign up and, we publish a extra podcast episode a month. We have bonus resource sections, like we have a VBD chart that we did for ourselves. And we're just rolling out a grow journal here in the next couple of weeks that should help you keep better track of what's happening in your garden and spot those problems earlier. So thank you again to Maria Swansen of Swan Consulting, and happy growing, guys. We'll talk to you next time.